Hi, I'm Robin.
And I'm Chris. Together we're the Gen X couple.
Hey guys.
Take one. Hello, everyone.
So, Boston is one of those cities where history is literally everywhere, and few things capture that history quite like the USS Constitution, or as she's famously known, Old Ironsides. Just seeing her in the Charlestown Navy Yard is something else. You look at the towering masts, the miles of rigging, the enormous hull, and you realize that this isn't just a ship, it's a living piece of history. It fully commissioned, fully maintained, and still able to sail to this day. Every plank, every rope, every cannon has a story.
Yeah, it's wild. When you first see her, you notice the copper sheeting along the hull.
Here we go.
And the way the timbers fit together.
Theshing. Yes. I can't say it either, so.
There's live oak and white oak, incredible, dense, and durable. And the rigging, I swear you can get lost in it if you weren't careful. Every rope, pulley, and block was designed with a purpose, and seeing it today gives you a sense of how complicated life aboard must have been.
Yeah, we see it. When we go into Boston, we park at the Coast Guard station because I'm married to a veteran and he can get in and park there, which is really nice. And you can see it across the harbor, and it's really cool to see it. I haven't been on board in, I don't know, I think I was in 5th grade, so like 100 years ago. That was the last time I was on board, but one of our children almost worked on board.
Yeah, and it's located in Boston, right?
It's in Charlestown, which is like a one of those sections of Boston. I think Charlestown is technically considered Boston, but it's like a separate section of Boston, kind of like Southie or Roxbury, like, one of those types of like side cities.
Yeah.
Whatever they're called. I forget what they're called. But the history behind her is fascinating. After the Revolutionary War, the United States realized it needed a strong navy to protect its trade and assert itself on the world stage. Congress passed the Naval Act in 1794 to authorize 6 frigates, and Boston was chosen as one of the shipyards because of its access to massive timber and skilled craftsmen. The keel for construction was laid down in
The keel for Constitution.
Oh, you got me! Oh my God, that's the first time. Good
Probably
job.
The first and last time, but
this is really for mispronunciations. I just misread it, but I'll let it stand. I'll let it stand. Good job. Good job. The keel for Constitution was laid down in 1794 at Edmund Hart's shipyard in Charlestown, marking the beginning of a ship that would outlive most of the people, actually all of the people that built her. Why did I put most? All of the people that built her.
And what is completely amazing is the craftsmanship. The hull uses live oak, which is so dense it could actually repel cannonballs, and white oak for flexibility.
Did you mean white oak?
That's what I said. White oak.
That's not how it came out.
Every timber was hand-shaped. Carpenters, blacksmiths, caulkers, sailmakers. Hundreds of people worked together. Sailmakers stitched miles of canvas into the sails. Blacksmiths forged cannon carriages. Caulkers sealed seams with pitch. And there was no power tools. It was all skill, muscle, and precision.
Speaking of blacksmiths, I had seen a really funny meme the other day. And it said something like, every time I put a really hot pan under water in the sink and the steam comes up, it makes me feel like a blacksmith. That was hilarious. Oh my God. Anyway, the launch itself was a spectacle too. Imagine the hull sliding into the water for the first time with hundreds of onlookers cheering and craftsmen holding their breath. and of course sailors preparing to board a ship that was already a marvel of engineering. It wasn't just about beauty, though. Every plank, beam, fastener had to hold together during storms, battles, and long voyages.
And speaking of battles, Constitution was armed with 44 guns, originally a mix of 24 and 32 pounders. That's enormous firepower for a frigate at that time.
I don't even know what that means.
Those are the size of the cannonballs. How much they weigh? A 24-pounder cannonball and a 32-pound.
Oh, why do we put guns? Is a cannon also called a gun?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I ever knew that in all my years of living.
No.
I thought they were two separate weapons.
No.
Okay, thank you.
And each gun had a crew trained to load, aim, and fire rapidly. The gunners, the officers, the midshipmen, everyone had a role, and even small mistakes could be deadly.
And of course, life wasn't just about firing cannons, or guns, as I now know that they're also called. I thought guns were the smaller ones, and cannons were the big ones that shoot cannonballs.
Yeah, it's just another name.
Oh, you're so smart sometimes. So life wasn't just about firing cannons, although that must have been a pretty cool job. The officers and the midshipmen began training even before she sailed. They learned navigation, sail handling, knot work, signaling, and leadership. The enlisted sailors practiced drills, swabbed decks, maintained the rigging, and learned their stations for battle. By the time Constitution left the shipyard, the crew was ready, and it must have been terrifying for the young midshipmen seeing the ocean stretch into the horizon for the very first time.
Yeah,
right?
I can just picture it. The ropes creaking, sails snapping in the wind, officers shouting orders, the smell of tar and wood. Every crew member knew their exact station, who hoisted the sails, who swabbed the deck, who loaded powder into the cannons, all while the ship moving through the waves and storms. The level of coordination is insane.
I would hope so, though.
Yeah.
You know?
I hope they practice a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine so. They have to know exactly what they're doing. And this ship wasn't just functional, it was built to endure. The copper sheathing protected the hull from shipworms. What is a shipworm? I should have looked that up. Gross. That sounds disgusting. The live oak provided incredible strength, and the hull's design allowed her to sail faster than many ships her size. She wasn't just a weapon. She was a masterpiece of naval engineering.
And it's incredible to think that over 225 years later, she's still standing.
That is pretty incredible.
Still commissioned, and you can actually walk her decks today. But before we go and visit it, we need to talk about the crew and daily life abroad. How sailors lived, worked, ate, and survived while maintaining this floating fortress. That's where it really comes alive.
Yeah, and we're about to dive into that next. And we're going to include drills, meals, watches, maintenance, and what a day in the life of a Constitution sailor looked like.
So there's over 400 men. And that includes officers, midshipmen, marines, sailors, and everyone has a role, and the hierarchy is very strict.
That seems like a lot of men. That's not a huge ship. That's a lot of men to be.
I think it is a pretty big ship. But
think about it. I mean, it's maybe big ship for ship size, but think about 400 people crammed on there at a time. Yeah. I don't know. I'd get claustrophobic, I think. So at the top of the hierarchy, you've got the captain, of course. So somebody say like Captain Isaac Hull during the War of 1812. And below him are lieutenants and midshipmen, which are young men often in their teens who are learning the ropes, literally and figuratively. Midshipmen handled the navigation, they led small teams, and learned leadership, while the sailors executed the day-to-day tasks that kept the ship afloat and battle-ready.
And enlisted sailors had a brutal schedule. They worked in shifts, standing watches for hours at a time. Some maintained the sails, others swabbed decks and hauled cargo. They cleaned the cannon carriages or tended to maintenance tasks, and everything had to be done perfect. A slip on the wet deck could lead to an injury or worse, especially in a stormy weather situation.
That's true. Every morning, the ship's bell would wake the crew, kind of like the wake-up song on the bases.
Yes.
What's that called?
Reveille.
Yeah, thank you. It's the wake-up song. What do they play at 7 a.m. or 7:30?
Depends on the base and the service.
Air
Force sleeps in.
As a perk of being married to a veteran, we stay on military bases sometimes when we travel. Especially when we go to San Diego, we always stay on a military base. And they play a song, so even if you don't want to get up, you're getting up. Even if
Yes.
you're on vacation, you're still getting up with the rest of the military people that are stationed there. But anyway, so on the ship, every morning the ship's bell would wake everyone up. Sailors would climb out of their hammocks, often stacked 3 high in the berthing areas, and begin the first tasks of the day, swabbing the decks, inspecting the rigging, coiling ropes, and checking sails. Officers would assign duties and inspect the ship to make sure that everything was in tip-top shape.
And meals were, well, basically, to say the least, salted meat, hardtack, dry beans, and sometimes oatmeal or rice. Fresh food was rare, maybe fish caught during a calm spell. Water was stored in barrels, and sailors had to be careful to ration it, especially on long voyages.
And when battle drills were scheduled, everything changed. Sailors had to load and fire cannons efficiently, haul ropes to adjust sails for optimal positioning, and be ready to repel boarders if necessary. Even the training was pretty intense. The drills were designed to simulate real combat conditions, so the crew would act instinctively under fire, which is what you guys in the military do anyway. That's pretty
Yes.
typical, right?
Yeah, and I love those details. They practiced loading a cannon. One sailor would swab it to remove embers. Another would load the gunpowder, then a cannonball
Gunpowder or powder?
powder. Ram it down, prime it, aim it, and then fire.
Mm-hmm.
Every action had a partner, and timing was critical. One mistake could injure multiple men or misfire entirely. And this was happening when the ship was pitching in waves, ropes were snapping, and snails flapping violently in the wind.
Sails, not snails.
Oh, sails.
And then there were the Marines that were stationed along the deck. They provided security, kept order, and were responsible for defending the ship in close combat situations. Officers supervised and coordinated every move. The discipline was strict, but camaraderie was strong. The crew depended on each other to survive long voyages and intense battles.
Yeah, and even off-duty time was structured. Sailors might spend it repairing small items, weaving rope, polishing equipment, or writing letters home. There wasn't much free time, but maintaining the ship was a constant priority, and sleep was taken in shifts in the cramped berthing areas and below, and hammocks that swung as the ship moved.
But really, what was there to do besides read or sleep in your free time anyway back then, really?
Gaze off into the sunset.
Yeah, watch the sunset, I guess. And we really haven't even touched on navigation. So midshipmen and officers constantly calculated latitude and longitude and would adjust the ship's course using a compass, a sextant, and charts. One small miscalculation could put them off course for days or weeks. Every aspect of daily life required precision and teamwork. You don't even think about,
I know.
I don't know how you would have done it. Actually, you might have done really well with latitude and longitude because you have trouble following a GPS sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, they didn't have any modern technology, no engines, no GPS.
Right.
Everything relied on skill, observation, and coordination. Sailors had to respond immediately to changing wind conditions, storms, and enemy action.
And despite the hardships, the crew developed routines that allowed the ship to function like a well-oiled machine. Every rope had a name, every sail had a purpose, every man had a station. And it's this combination of human skill, discipline, and sheer endurance that made the Constitution such an effective ship in her day.
Yeah, officers were shouting orders, midshipmen were directing sailors, cannons being swabbed and loaded, sails snapping in the wind, and when a battle loomed, every man had to be in his position, no exceptions.
Right. So now we've stepped aboard and seen what daily life was like. Eventually, this incredible ship and her crew faced their ultimate test, which was battle. The first one that really put Old Ironsides on the map was HMS Guerriere in 1812. And Chris, you can read about this, so you can walk us through this one.
Absolutely. So it's August 19th, 1812, off the coast of Nova Scotia. Constitution, commanded by Captain Isaac Hull, spots Guerriere, a British frigate. Immediately, the crew jumps into battle readiness. Cannons are swabbed, loaded, and primed. Marines take their position on the deck to repel repel boarders. Sailors adjusted sails to maneuver officers, shouting commands, and the tension is unreal.
Yeah, imagine the smoke, the thick, black, acrid gunpowder smoke filling the air. You can barely see. The decks are shaking with each cannon discharge, and the smell of burnt powder mixes with the sea salt spray. Right?
Yes.
Yes. Sailors had to load and fire cannons with precision, often in pairs or teams, like we said, all while the ship rocked in the waves, and one misstep could spell disaster.
Exactly. Hull's strategy was brilliant. He kept Constitution at an angle that minimized the ship's exposure while maximizing the effectiveness of the broadside cannons. Every shot had to count because British frigates like Guerriere were experienced and well-armed. Constitution's crew worked seamlessly, swabbing, loading, aiming, and firing, all under intense pressure.
And then there's the moment when a cannonball strikes. Now you have me questioning it. Guerriere. All right. Guerriere. And it's so effective that parts of her hull are destroyed, her mast splintered, and the crew, obviously, is thrown into chaos. Constitution's live oak hull holds firm against the incoming fire, hence the nickname Old Ironsides. But it's a mix of engineering and human skill that made her so formidable.
And it wasn't just about firepower, though. Maneuvering was critical. Hull used the wind, the positioning of the ships, and the skill of his crew to gain the upper hand. The British tried to retreat, but the Constitution pursued and then
He was supposed to
landing
say the
more
name of the ship
devastating broadsides. Eventually, the British was demasted and forced to surrender.
The victory was decisive, but think about the crew, the adrenaline, the smoke, the heat of the cannon fire, the smell of the gunpowder, and the tension. The sailors had to act instinctively, following orders without hesitation. Midshipmen were running from station to station, officers were shouting commands, Marines were ready to board if needed. Total chaos controlled by total discipline.
And then, just a few months later, in December of 1812, Constitution faced HMS Java near Brazil. Another intense engagement. Java tried to use her agility, but Constitution's firepower and hull tactics proved superior. Sailors once again executed flawless drills under extreme conditions. The cannon fire, smoke, and noise were overwhelming, but the crew's training allowed Constitution to prevail.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that these ships had no engines, no modern navigation, and yet could maneuver so effectively in every battle. Everything was part of a complex machine, but the human element is really what made the difference. The sailors, officers, and midshipmen had to be perfectly coordinated.
And the stories don't stop there. The Constitution also played a critical role in the Barbary Wars, protecting American commerce from pirates along the North African coast. The ship patrolled, delivered diplomats, and showed that the young U.S. Navy could protect power internationally. Sailors had to maintain vigilance for weeks at a time, all while managing long voyages, supplies, and weather hazards.
All right, so we've seen the Constitution in battle, but her story isn't just cannon fire and smoke. She also spent a huge part of her life on peacetime voyages, showing the flag, protecting American trade, and asserting the young nation's presence abroad. Chris, these missions were a whole different challenge, weren't they?
Yeah, imagine being at sea for months on end without the chaos of combat, but still dealing with storms, cramped quarters, long shifts, and the constant need to maintain the ship. Constitution's crew had to keep everything in top shape, sails, ringing, hull cannons. Even when there was no immediate threat, maintenance never stopped.
Yeah, and these voyages weren't just about staying at sea. Constitution sailed to Europe, the Mediterranean, and South America, pretty much anywhere that American commerce or diplomacy needed protection. The Barbary Coast missions are a great example of that. She patrolled the North African coast to protect American merchants from pirates.
Yes, during the Barbary Wars, sailors had to be vigilant at all times. Pirates often used...
Vigilant?
Yes, pirates often used smaller, faster vessels that could sneak in at the night. Even when not engaged in battle, crews stayed on edge.
The night.
They had to manage watches, maintain cannons, and repair the ship as needed. Nighttime meant lanterns, strict noise discipline, and careful navigation to avoid hidden shoals or enemy craft.
And food and water were constant concerns too. Fresh provisions were often pretty scarce, especially on those long missions. The crew relied on preserved rations like salted meat, like we said before, the same stuff, hardtack, dried beans, and whatever they could supplement from fishing or port provisions. Water had to be very carefully rationed, and like we said earlier, it was stored in barrels, so imagine how that tasted, and it had to be regularly inspected for spoilage.
And weather was always a factor. Storms in the Atlantic could last days, soaking the crew, tearing sails, and damaging rigging. Sailors had to climb high into the mast to reef sails. Sometimes during lightning storms or gale force winds, the teamwork and coordination required were incredible.
And these missions weren't short either. Some lasted for months or even over a year. They had to constantly wash their rations. Nope, that's not. I'm buzzing myself. They had constant watch rotations, cleaning decks, maintaining rigging, and preparing for emergencies, and that required enormous stamina. The midshipmen kept meticulous logs, officers oversaw the drills, and sailors endured the physical demands of life at sea.
And then there's these smaller engagements along these voyages, pirates or smugglers, forcing the crew into combat readiness at a moment's notice. But the Constitution's reputation was a strong, fast, well-manned frigate made her a very good deterrent. But there was always that threat that was real.
Yeah, but these peacetime voyages helped establish the Navy's credibility internationally and allowed the United States to negotiate from a position of strength. Constitution was a symbol. It was really a floating embassy, a protector of commerce, and a testament to the American craftsmanship and discipline.
Yeah, and even when the ship returned home, the crew had to repair damage, restock supplies, and prepare for the next mission. So even in peacetime, there was no rest for the Constitution.
No rest for the weary.
Yes.
So like we already said at the beginning, she sailed through a bunch of battles and peacetime missions, and she isn't just a relic of the past. She still survives today. She's been there for 225 years, and it's amazing to me how much work has gone into preserving her.
Yeah, and the first major restoration happened in the 1830s when they repaired her hull and updated her rigging. But that really intensifies restorations coming in the 20th century.
I'll let that one go. It intensifies. And in the 1920s, she was almost completely rebuilt. They replaced copper sheathing, hull planks, decks, and everything very carefully, keeping as much of the original material as possible. The goal was to maintain her historic integrity while making sure she could survive. Shipwrights used traditional methods, hand tools, and centuries-old techniques to match the craftsmanship of the original builders.
And they didn't stop there. In the 1990s, another major restoration stripped the ship down to her frames in some areas, replaced rotted timbers, and restored her masts and rigging. The care that goes into this incredibly, and everything was documented, measured, and cross-checked against historical plans.
Yeah, I think one of the most fascinating parts is the live oak and the white oak selection. Buzzing myself. Modern shipwrights were able to source wood that matched the original density and curvature, shaping it to fit the hull exactly. They also maintained the copper sheathing below the waterline to protect against rot and shipworms. What are shipworms? That's the second time I've said that. I should have Googled that.
Wood.
That, like termites?
Yeah.
That is so gross to think that they're on ships. I never even would have thought that they'd be out at sea like that. Anyway,
so
carry on.
Even the cannons are preserved carefully. Many of the originals were removed for safety and display, but the gun decks are maintained so that visitors can see how sailors would have worked during battle. And the rigging, miles of rope and lines is checked constantly. One frayed rope at the wrong moment could cause serious injury or damage to the mast.
Yeah, and the preservation isn't just about the materials, you guys. It's about the technique. Sailors today, Navy personnel, and museum staff train in the original methods. They hoist the sails, set the rigging, and care for the ship exactly as the original crew would have. It's living history.
Yeah, and actually in the Navy, they also have classes for Navy personnel there. And
Really?
sometimes it's a requirement to reach the highest rank and enlisted to do like a week or 2 week course at the Constitution.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
And it's still maintained today with over a battalion, about 100 active duty Navy person who work on the ship. And it's a special duty assignment.
Really? Like the special assignments you get at your job?
Yeah.
Sort of thing? Really? That's pretty cool.
It is.
That would be a really cool job, I would think.
Yeah, and the ship still sails today. It goes out 6 times a year.
6?
Yeah.
Do you know what the 6 are? Maybe I have it
mostly
later in our
summer.
notes. I don't even know. I know it's in the summer. They probably can't get through the icy water in the winter. I wouldn't risk it if I were them. Let's just scroll through our notes. What else do we have to... No, I think that's it.
Yeah.
That was interesting, though. You can visit the USS Constitution.
Yeah.
They're open, I think... I don't even know. I should have looked this up for you guys,
I
but you
think
can Google it
they're
yourself.
open year-round,
They're open year-round.
but they do close for bad weather.
Yeah. But yeah, they definitely do sail. But I haven't seen it sail. But I feel like when the tall ships are around, they bring it out.
The tall ships will be here this year.
Oh, they're coming this year?
Yes.
In 2026?
Yes.
Oh, so we're going to go in and see them?
Yes.
I remember the first time they came, I went with my parents. My mom and dad went. That was an awesome memory. It was like the coolest thing because I feel like they've toned it down since then. But back then, there were like hundreds of tall ships. It was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
We should go in. We should plan a day to go in and see them.
We should.
No, we should.
I'm agreeing with you.
I feel like you're just trying to appease me and say, "Oh yeah, we will," but then not really. But no, we should. That's cool. But go visit Old Ironsides, and like we said earlier, we had a child, our oldest, that was very close to taking a job.
It was a big process to get hired there. He was going to get hired as a maintenance person, a civilian.
Mm-hmm.
He had to go through at least 2 interviews, maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
He had to go through a physical. He had to do prove that he could lift 50 pounds, sign a waiver that he wasn't afraid of heights, and he had to sign a contract saying he would be available to go out when it sailed for weeks at a time.
Yeah, I don't even remember what ended up happening with that. I think it was the human resources in the federal government that held the entire thing up because he was ready to start, and then they kept delaying his start date, and he ended up having to take another job because this was after he got back from Germany. He worked in Germany for a year, and then he was on unemployment until he could find another job, but the unemployment was about to stop, and he needed a job, and I think it was human resources that held up the whole thing. I don't know if it was HR or the ship itself, but
I think it was HR.
The start date kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and he was like, I need a job, so he had to take another job. But he has a good job now.
Yeah, he does.
He works with veterans at UMass Boston, so he actually he landed in a really good job. And honestly, if he's probably a lot warmer because he would have been outside in the winter we have winter 9 months a year here in Massachusetts, so it actually probably worked out for the best. But that would have been a really cool job. That would have been so cool. Hey, where do you work? I work on the USS Constitution. That's like pretty badass. That's awesome. But anyway, okay, I'm rambling. I don't know if I have any pictures. I am so bad about updating the social media, but we are, what are we, the Gen X couple or Gen X couple on
Gen
Instagram?
X couple.
I haven't been on there so long that I forget what our handle even is, but one of these days I'm going to surprise you guys. And
all right, see you later, alligator.
He's pushing me to wrap it up, but see you later, alligator. In a while, crocodile. I feel like there's another line that comes after that, but I don't know what it is. Okay, whatever. Bye.